I am here to say we have a new day. We are so sick of godlessness prevailing in our society. And guess what? It only takes us 2 seconds to figure out where it's coming from. Where is that? Well, think about our kids in school. They are learning atheistic science.
It's time to keep calm. It seems legit. Hi everybody, I am Brendan, the Prototype Atheist, and today I want to introduce you to Juanita Berguson. Now, Juanita and I have a little bit of history on Twitter, as we've discussed her opinion that atheism is a religion and her general denial of evolution in the past. But as you can see, she has decided to immortalize her ignorance on YouTube. So, let's see where this is headed.
It means science that tells us all about the world, how it exists, how it came into existence, how we got here, but it just happens to leave out any reference to God. That's called naturalistic science, which, aka another word for atheistic science.
No, Juanita. There's no such thing as atheistic science. There's just science. If scientific evidence happens to lead to an atheistic conclusion or leads us to reject a specific god or gods, then that's just a consequence. That's just an outcome. That's not the goal of science, is to disprove your God. Now, science deals with the observable universe and things that can be detected and tested. If your God just happens to fall outside of that criteria, then it cannot be examined by science, hence why it would not be taught in a science classroom. However, you're a Christian, and so you make the claim that your God created the universe and otherwise physically interacted with it directly, including coming to earth in human form as Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago. So there should be some sort of empirical evidence around to prove that, and yet we have none. There's no reason that science shouldn't be able to test this claim, according to your own theology, yet we've discovered nothing. And while an absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, it certainly isn't promising either.
Here is the thing. Atheism used to be more of a personal choice that people would say, well, I don't believe that God exists. And of course, everyone has a right to make that choice. But now the atheists are starting to organize. They're starting to standardize their beliefs. They're starting to congregate in churches. Guess what? Atheism is becoming a religion.
And inevitably, there it is. Don't say I didn't warn you. Now, of course, there's atheists that attend Sunday assembly and similar gatherings. You can call it atheist church if you really want to. But really, what are these about? What are they intended for? Well, most atheists grew up religious and grew up with religion and going to church. And so once they left religion behind, they lacked that sense of fellowship and community that they had when they attended church. And so while they no longer believe in God and they're no longer religious, they might still want that sense of community and that fellowship with other like-minded people. They might even want to do philanthropic or charity work, and a place like that might be somewhere to meet other people to get something like that done. So to sit there and criticize atheists who happen to want to attend a quote-unquote church just to get a dig at them because you think that it's hypocritical or ironic somehow is just ridiculous, for starters. On top of that, I don't agree that atheism is a choice per se. You know, I don't really have a choice if I want to be a Christian or an atheist because I have enough knowledge about reality, about science and history and philosophy to know that Christianity isn't true. I couldn't possibly lie to myself and be a Christian even if I wanted to. It's not a choice. I mean, sure, I choose to lack belief in gods because I'm unconvinced, but I can't choose to be a Christian knowing what I know now. So to claim that it's a choice is really a misnomer. And on top of that, yeah, atheists are starting to gather together and they are starting to speak out and they are starting to have a voice because for the first time, really in a long time, if not ever, atheists are able to criticize religion and speak out against it without fear of really any repercussions. I mean, sure, there's still a cost to it. It could be social suicide in many areas of the United States still, especially in the Bible Belt. But no change can come about if people aren't going to speak up, and atheists are starting to gain a voice and criticize religion and make you question your beliefs and answer for them. And if you can't do that, then that's not our problem, that's yours.
And that means that for naturalistic science that is atheistic in nature, we've got a problem here. This whole route to this worldview, this godless worldview, godless education, godless citizens, godless government, godless society has a root. And that root is religious.
You know, you keep using this term godless as a pejorative, like it's an insult or a negative thing. And yet, we see that atheists are underrepresented in the prison population, and that less religious countries tend to have fewer problems and fewer crime and higher quality of life. And last time I checked, our government is far from godless. Being an open atheist is political suicide for the most part. And if you'll notice, all our politicians still pander to religion and God belief, and specifically Christianity in this country.
How do we know it's religious? How do we know atheism is a religion? Why, there are a lot of philosophies around. You know, philosophies of leadership, philosophies of medicine, all kinds of philosophies. Those leadership and medicine, they don't make statements on God. Atheism, at its core, makes a statement on God. And by making a statement on God, that God doesn't exist, by default, it's making a statement on the afterlife and how we got here and everything else.
Again, this is simply inaccurate. Agnostic atheism makes no claims about the existence or non-existence of any gods. It is simply the lack of belief in gods. Now, as far as your claim about the afterlife, there's nothing inherent to atheism that precludes belief in an afterlife. Just because your theistic belief system posits that a heaven and a hell exist after you die, depending on how you're judged according to your deity, that doesn't mean that that's the only possible afterlife that could exist. There could exist an afterlife even in the absence of any gods. There's probably atheists out there that believe in some sort of afterlife that don't believe in any gods whatsoever. Atheism is just a lack of belief in gods. It doesn't stop you from believing in the supernatural or that you have a spirit or an existence after you die. Now, I'm sure most atheists don't believe that anything happens when you die, but again, it's not a requirement of atheism. The afterlife that you believe in is both unjust and irrational because it rewards gullibility while punishing critical thinking. It'll allow murderers and rapists to get to an eternity of bliss in heaven by simply repenting and accepting your God, while non-believers will be punished unceasingly for all eternity for the finite crime of not believing in your God, because we did not have enough evidence to prove that it existed. That is not a just system of punishment and reward.
Folks, this is good news for us. Welcome to a new world where atheism as a religion can be challenged in the public educational system.
So, just to reiterate, atheism is not a religion. In fact, the most common definition of the word religion is a belief in a god or gods. And atheism, a, without, plus theism, belief in gods, is exactly not that. Now, there's an alternate definition of the word religion that can mean a structured belief system or worldview. And atheism still is not that. It's just a lack of belief in a god or gods. There's no other tenets or any other beliefs required to call yourself an atheist. Now, something like humanism might be considered a religion, and in fact, it was just considered a religion for tax purposes recently, but that is secondary to this and only covers a subset of atheism. Now, what you're actually referring to is the teaching of science in public schools. You're trying to claim that that's atheistic, which is simply inaccurate, as I explained earlier. Now, if there was a teacher actually teaching students that no gods exist and that atheism is true and that all the other religions are nonsense, well, that would be a violation of the separation of church and state, and I would also be opposed to that. But that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about the teaching of naturalistic science that is supported by evidence that just happens to conflict with your personal religion. So, sorry, atheism isn't a religion, evolution isn't a religion, and science isn't a religion. Just because atheists can appeal to scientific evidence to discredit your religion doesn't make it atheistic. So here's the deal. If you want your religion to be taught in public schools, then it should be done in a social studies class as part of comparative religion, or maybe in a philosophy class. But it has no business in a science class, unless you, of course, want to include a bunch of other creation theories from other religions and other religious scientific claims from other religions as well. But, of course, then there wouldn't be much time for any actual science, so that would probably be doing a disservice to our students in this country. And we're already lagging behind, unfortunately, in science and engineering and other technical fields, and your religion certainly not helping that. You know what? Maybe you guys can teach your creationism in science classrooms if you'll invite me into your churches to lecture you on evolution and philosophical naturalism on a weekly basis. You know, a little information exchange, or are you not really up for that? Well, fortunately, that's all Juanita had for us this time. I'd like to invite you to join me, the Godless Engineer, and Alis, aka God Works Out, every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for the Reason Secular Roundtable discussion. Also, be sure to check out our new website, thesecularroundtable.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and keep updated on other information regarding the group. And you can also buy one of these new t-shirts that we designed if you want to support our efforts. So, thanks for watching. Share this video and like it, and we'll see you next time.